You are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. Today is June 20th, 2024, and this is the 5th episode of Lighthearted Lite, a series where we hear edited versions of interviews from the past 5 years. In this installment, we're going to listen to an interview with Terry Rowden, the longtime caretaker at Little River Light Station in Cutler on the northern Maine coast. Terry Rowden is a native of Michigan. He initially served as a keeper at Little River Light Station for the U.S. Coast Guard from 1968 to 70. It was then that he met a local young woman named Cynthia, and Terry and Cynthia eventually married. When the Friends of Little River Lighthouse was founded as a chapter of the American Lighthouse Foundation in 2008, Terry became a volunteer. For 10 years, he has been the resident caretaker on the island. In 2016, Terry was awarded a President's Award from the American Lighthouse Foundation for his exemplary commitment to the organization's historic lighthouse preservation mission. Terry was interviewed for this podcast back in July of 2019. Also taking part in the interview is Bob Trapani Jr., who is the Executive Director of the American Lighthouse Foundation. The interview took place inside the Keeper's House at Little River. Let's listen to an edited version of our conversation with Terry Rowden now. I am here in the kitchen in the Keeper's Quarters at Little River Light Station in beautiful Cutler, Maine, and I am here with Terry Rowden. Thanks so much for joining me today, Terry. I really appreciate it. And also with me today is my good friend Bob Trapani Jr., Executive Director of the American Lighthouse Foundation. Terry, you were only 21 years old when you originally became a Coast Guard lightkeeper here at Little River Light Station.
Well, being that young, and I'm originally from just outside of Detroit, Michigan, and just coming to Cutler to start with a small fishing village, and then coming out to the island, it took a little getting used to. I was never used to having a four-party line, telephone line. When I grew up in Michigan, we always had private lines. So that took a little bit getting used to, but I knew once I got here that it was like it drew me here like a magnet. Mm-hmm. There were 3 of us stationed here. One would be off on rotation. So we'd work 14 days on and we'd get 7 off. So that was really good for good duty. And then plus I got 30 days leave a year. It was good duty, even though it was isolated.
And how long were you here?
I was here for 2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
And you met your wife to be here.
I certainly did. She was beautiful then. She's even more beautiful now. She lets me be a keeper here, so or a caretaker here. So it's, I decided not to go back to Michigan. We decided that we would raise our kids here, and I'm glad I did, because I'm back at 71 years old.
And she's one of the leading volunteers for the Friends of Little River Lighthouse.
I couldn't do this without her.
Yeah, so you're really a team.
She's a real trooper. When I need things, she goes to town, and like I said, I couldn't be able to do it without her.
Maybe if you could say a little bit more about what it was like here in those days.
It was nice in the summertime, but in the wintertime it was
kind of lonely.
It was cold. Everything would ice up. We would limit our trips back and forth. We always made sure we had plenty of food on hand, and I think they paid me $72 extra a month to buy my groceries, and we'd go up to the Navy base at the commissary store, where we got good choice of food that we wanted. It took a while to get used to being, on an island, but your car's in town, and there was, you were kind of stuck right here. You couldn't leave too much, but it was. I actually enjoyed it. I must have enjoyed it because I love the place now even more.
Terry, even though the island's not that far from the mainland, 10-minute ride in, mm-hmm. You speak of the cold, and we know this house is not insulated at all. You guys, not only were you having to deal with the cold weather, but now you can't even really get your boat in the town. The house could not have been heated that great at all times. I'm sure you had maybe 1 or 2 rooms that were better than the others, but what'd you guys do? How'd you guys deal with that?
Well, halfway across the island, across from the granite oil house, we had 5,000 gallons of fuel. the buoy tender would come in to follow the year. I'd stick the tanks to find out how much fuel I was going to take on, and there was a pipeline that went all the way down to the boathouse, and I'd take the pea pod out, and they would give me a handheld radio, and I would float the hose in, hook up, come up here, and I'd tell them I'd set the valves just where I needed to, for which tank to fill, and I was in constant contact with the engine room, so that they'd pump the fuel in, and there was no thermostat in this house. I joke about it now, but I always used to say that the wind would come through the window, this eastern window, at 60 miles an hour, and go out through that other opposite side of the house at 80 miles an hour. But because we had so much fuel was super cheap in them days, the furnace had an on and off switch, the old thermostat, and once it got cold, the furnace would run continually. It would never shut off. So with these cast iron radiators, we were plenty warm. It's like trying to heat a lobster trap, but it was, we were warm. We were warm.
So not like taking a brick to bed, a heated brick to bed, right?
Right. Yeah. It was challenging when we got a lot of snow, especially if we got the big northeasters.
Yeah. Any particularly memorable storms while you were here?
I got a call from Southwest Harbor, the group commander, and they sent a message down telling us to make sure that the generators, everything's up, fluid levels are all up and going, because we're going to get a big northeaster. I was stationed with a guy from Knoxville, Tennessee, and his name was Johnny Walker.
Of course.
Of course. So Johnny and I, we had the duty that particular storm, and I said, well, I can wait for a tree to blow down in town and lose the main cable from the mainland, power from the mainland, or I can go start the generator right now and not have to deal with it. So I said, I think that's what I'm going to do. I went out and started the generator, and then we went to bed. The next morning I got up. I come down the stairs, and I looked out the window in the stairway, and I couldn't see the tower door at all. The snow was up that high. And I said to Johnny, where's the snow shovels at? He says, they're out on the back porch. Well, you couldn't even see them. We snowed under. It actually came up to 2 panes on the glass right there. The snow was drifted around there, and I had to crawl out the office window with 2 dustpans. I got out with a dustpan first and shoveled it a little bit, and then Johnny got out, and between both of us, we shoveled our way to the porch to get the snow shovels. And then we shoveled all the way to the tower. And once we got the tower, the outside door swings out, so we had to make room for that to swing open. And it was quite a challenge, but that was probably the biggest storm that I've ever been in. And it was wet, heavy snow. It's beautiful here in the summertime. It's beautiful in the wintertime. The sea smoke is beautiful, as long as you don't have to go out in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's mighty cold.
It is cold. I never took, when I was a young man, I never took in consideration what it took to build this place out here. I mean, to build that tower, how heavy that must have been to bring them sections out here and put them together. And I'm just awestruck right now of how they did it.
Yeah, well, maybe even more so the original stone tower that was here.
Right, the stone house, them big granite blocks and granite stone is super heavy. And how they got it across, I don't think they brought it up from out here on the front side of the island. They had to have come on the beach side inside the harbor there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at 21 years old, though, if my memory serves me correct, you had some good ingenuity when it came to figuring out how to watch TV.
Johnny and I were out here, and in the middle of the night, we heard this big crash. It was a storm. And there was on the roof, I don't know how old it was quite old, there was a 20-foot pole, a telescopic pole, 2 10-foot sections. And it had an antenna, TV antenna, and it had a rotor on it. You could turn that thing around. Well, you could only get 2 channels anyway. I could get a channel from St. John's, New Brunswick, or I could get MPBN, and this was a black and white TV now. The antenna come down in the middle of the night. The guide wires rusted away. The antenna was pretty well trashed. So I called up Southwest Harbor, wanted the storekeeper, and I said, I got to see about, I explained to him what happened, and I said, I'd like to go uptown and purchase a new antenna and some new guide wire and stuff. Well, the storekeeper said, well, times are hard right now. He says, you're going to have to make do with what you got. And I says, well, okay. So I said, who am I speaking with? And he gave me his name, and I got on the station log. I wrote it down. I ended up I took a hacksaw and cut a piece off that's the longest piece. It was the straightest, and we kind of hooked the antenna together. And I took it up on top of the tower, and I took a pipe cap off the one corner post, and I put it down in there. Put the pipe down in there with the antenna, what was left of it. We attached like a boom on it, and I took some clothesline rope and 2 pulleys, and I hooked it down here to the porch out here, and I could pull the channel one way, pull it, and I could get New Brunswick. And if I pulled it the other way, well, that was fine. We're good. In the spring, I got to call the officers from Southwest Harbor, and the chiefs come out for an inspection. It was a chief warrant officer. When he saw that clothesline up there, for some reason he didn't see the antenna, and he says, "What in the world is that clothesline rope doing on that tower?" And I said, "Sir, come over here." I said, "Johnny, turn the TV on channel 9. So Johnny turns the TV on, and I looked through the window, and I had the officer standing on the deck right there, and I pulled it one way like that, and channel 9 come in, fairly good. And then I said, "Turn around 13." And he went back, and I pulled it the other way, and he says, "Job well done." Right? And it stayed there. I don't know how many years. I think when they closed this in '74, Bob, I've got pictures of it. It was still up there. They didn't bother to get another antenna. I was scared right to death, though, when he said, "What is that clothesline?" I thought he was going to... I didn't want to be demoted at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if Terry shares our love. We love basketball, but I know they even got a little bit of a basketball story here too, right?
Yeah. There was an old barn here back when Willie Corbett and the Corbetts lived here. The only thing that was left to it when I got here in 1968 was the floor. So Johnny and I, we fixed put a basketball hoop up, and we used it as a court. And the first thing you want to be careful of is don't stub your toe and fall down and get a sliver, because it's not good. But it was something to stand there and just shoot hoops.
But it was just a floor. There were no walls.
No walls, no nothing. It was just
so
a floor.
if you shot like an air ball, the ball could end up in the water.
No, it went in the woods. It went in the woods here.
Okay.
Yeah. Johnny would go to Tennessee. He would go to Tennessee every time he had a time off. And before I met my wife, I used to go to Detroit, Michigan. And if I wore my uniform, I could fly from Bangor to Portland to Manchester, New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire to Detroit, and back for $52. But that was a lot of money. I mean, especially when you don't make much. I didn't make much money when I was in the Coast Guard. But then I met my wife, and that's the rest of the story.
Yeah. And to just flash forward a few years, you've now been a caretaker for several years.
Right. When ALF took over the island here, I would come out and mow lawns. I didn't do too much of the volunteer stuff inside. Now that I'm the caretaker here, like I was just saying a minute ago, you love the island so much you don't really want to leave it. And like my sign says, if once you have ever slept on an island, you'll never be quite the same.
Yes. Well, you're really the 21st century keeper. You know, some of us who are kind of purists about lighthouse history are a little hesitant to use the word keeper for people who, because the light is automated, the light comes on by itself. But for all intents and purposes, you are the keeper.
Well, all I know is if once you come here and see the beauty of my front yard is here, it's breathtaking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's magic. It's
is.
Absolute magic.
It is.
You've been here as caretaker since 2015. You've seen people from all over the world, right? We get guests from everywhere.
I have. They come from Italy. I've had quite a few people from Italy come. I think the furthest one was husband and wife from Australia. And then there was one from Hobart, Tasmania, which is just off Australia. I've had them from St. Petersburg, Russia, San Pablo, Brazil, of course, all over the States, a lot of the States and Canada. And surprisingly enough, everybody that comes here, they don't want to leave either. You know, it grows on you.
Well, I think that's a great point. You know, we have a lighthouse here, of course, and that's a primary attraction for people, but it's so much more than that. When you see all these guests, there's a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people are crying when they have to leave. They're just some of the life-changing things that can happen at a place like this, and it's not just about the lighthouse, and that's the beautiful thing, is this is really a one-of-a-kind experience.
Right. I'm just fortunate. I'm so fortunate to be, you know, to have a wife to let me do this. One of these days is going to come to an end. I don't know when. I lived all winter long dreaming about being back here again in the spring, and I usually do a project. And this year I worked on the plaster in my bedroom here, and you know, I pick a project that I can do before the guests start coming. Because once they come here, it's you know, I keep the lawn, I mow the lawn and stuff like that, but I don't do a lot of you know, bigger projects. But because it's more fun to sit and talk to the people from around the world. I mean, and I had one couple that came here. They were from Milan, Italy. They got married, a young couple. They got married in April. They flew to New York City. They were in New York for 3 weeks. They went to Washington, D.C. They went Florida, Las Vegas. They went to California. They went all the way around. They didn't get out here until in April and August. And he happened to be an interior designer architect of restaurantes. Is what he says, restaurante. So it was interesting to talk to him, and they could cook Italian food. It was just unbelievable. And that's the fun part. I volunteered here, but I wouldn't take a dime. I wouldn't change it the way it is, because just being able to have these people come here and to talk to them at night and see how they live. And it's a funny thing that we think that we want to go somewhere say in Europe somewhere, but you can't get any more beautiful than what this place is right here.
True.
Well, I'll tell you what, Terry, we are super grateful as the American Lighthouse Foundation to have you as a caretaker. In many ways, you are still on watch after all these years. And, you know, we just encourage people to take a try, come stay at Little River Lighthouse, get to meet Terry, get to experience this island. And to learn how you can do that, you can go to littleriverlight.org and learn all about this wonderful place.
Well, this is the easiest interview I ever did, having you two guys here. Terry, it's just it's moving to hear you talk about it, because the love is so apparent that you have for this place. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've only gotten to be on this island a handful of times over the past 15 years, 20, actually almost 20 years. I first came out here with a group of people from the American Lighthouse Foundation almost 20 years ago. But when I come here, it has such a special feel to it. So I completely understand the way you feel about it.
Yeah.
And
it's, like you say, it's magical.
It absolutely is. And I echo Bob's sentiment that the American Lighthouse Foundation is so lucky to have somebody like you who loves this place so much, and you've been so good to it, and it's been good to you. So it's a great relationship. So thank you, Terry. Thank you, Bob, so much. And again, our listeners can find out more at, say it again, Bob, the website?
littleriverlight.org.
Mm-hmm. And also lighthousefoundation.org, of course, for the American Lighthouse Foundation and all the lights that the foundation takes care of. So thank you both so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
And Terry,
thank
carry
you.
on.
Terry Rowden is thinking of stepping down as the caretaker at Little River after this season, which is his 10th there. Whether or not he steps down, I want to wish Terry and Cynthia Rowden all the best, and I congratulate them for 10 years on the island. Terry and Cynthia are the kind of volunteers who are the backbone of lighthouse preservation organizations. We will be back with a regular episode of Lighthearted this Sunday, and more episodes of Lighthearted Light will be coming. For now, to all our regular listeners and our new ones, thanks so much for listening, and keep a good light.